Hey, welcome, potential ePIC advisor, or if you are also going through our ePIC University training, this testimonial might be in there. I am joined, excitedly so, from father and son duo, David and Timothy Robertson, a very successful father and son practice in Michigan that have fully adopted the ePIC platform. And today we're just going to be sharing some stories from them. They're going to be sharing some stories about why they adopted it, some of the backstory about how we got connected years ago, pre-COVID, I think even. So let's go ahead and kick this off. I'm going to bring in David Robertson. David, how are you doing?
Thank you for those kind words, Carter. Hopefully we can live up to that.
Yeah, I have no doubt. There's no doubt about it. And I mean, you have a very successful practice there in Michigan. Well, without further ado, David, why don't you share a little bit about how we got started? And I think it was right in the throes in the beginning of COVID, we got introduced, but I want to have you share with the audience here a little bit of, what kind of compelled you to want to have conversations with us, and one of the things that we've solved for you now that we're 5+ years down the road.
So interesting as I think back to those days of how, in fact, we did get started. But my background is I've been in the business for about 38 years. And all the time in my financial advisory practice, I always pass things off to the local estate planning attorney. And Carter, we've had this discussion before, and I've had with many of my other peers that it's always we pass to them, but nothing ever comes back to us. So that was a problem. And during COVID, I recall that people were not, they were all excited because they thought everybody was going to die, and they wanted to update their estate plans. And when they would call the local estate planning attorneys, they would either not get calls back or they would be billed for big charges. So things always come back to us as the quarterback of things. And I was looking for a better way to do it. Hence, found Carter and ePIC Services, which was wonderful because one of the beauties of the ePIC plan is that working with the estate planning attorneys, oftentimes they're more expensive. Almost all the time they're more expensive. I've had situations where the estate planning attorneys, they actually try to push clients over to their people or their banks, which is a big no-no in my world. And oftentimes they do stuff where they're not fully funding the things because attorneys don't care about funding. That's a problem. And that usually reflects poorly on us, which is also not a good thing that we'd like to do. And when post-death, they often want to come in and do all kinds of creative things to generate income. So fortunately for us, we found ePIC, and with virtual estate plans where people could speak with a live attorney and pay one time versus every time they needed to update, a client with a local attorney got to pay again. And in my career, I feel that my statistics are that the average person updates or changes their estate plan about 3 times in their lifetime. And of course, when they do that, they get to pay again. Benefit for ePIC Services and for clients in that once they pay that subscription agreement or they pay for that agreement, they don't have to pay again. And they can literally change things in the middle of the night if they're mad at one of their kids or their in-laws to adjust the trust. A huge, big deal.
Yeah, and David, let me just chime in just there real fast because one of the things I wanted to address, which all of the things you got to talking about is what I've addressed, that one-way street, as I call it, that that lack of reciprocation, right? Mm-hmm. You said one way, but it's a one-way street. That's one thing, but the other part of this is because I started with the idea of asking a question: why do estate plans fail? Now, why do estate plans fail? from a grantor's perspective, right? Your clients. Why does an estate plan fail from an advisor's perspective? How do we retain clients and beneficiaries? Can you talk a little bit about how that's helped to benefit your own practice with addressing those areas?
So, Carter, good point. I'm going to chat for a minute, and I'm going to turn it over to Tim and let him tell a little success story that we had. So I mentioned I've been in business for quite some time, and I'm in the business of I want to retain assets through the next generation to keep those assets under management. And I have pushed in the past with many of the companies that we've done business with to try to set up a trust company, which will allow us to continue to manage assets onto the next generation for a smooth transition. And ePIC has done that. I thought it was wonderful that it was a great idea, and actually to have it come to fruition, where not just did it work, where it worked splendidly, and the clients, the beneficiaries, actually came back and said thank you to us for helping to facilitate that. So a great client story to share with your folks, Carter, but it was somebody that Tim had worked with. So I'll turn this over to Tim.
Yeah, so story, this was probably 2-3 years ago. We had one of our single widowed clients. She passed away with $2.5 million. She lived in Michigan, but her 3 remaining beneficiaries, all of her sisters, lived all over the country. So with using ePIC, and which was really a huge help, is it was kind of a hands-off really for us. We had done a good job of making sure that we get everything set up originally on the platform. We named an institutional trustee. So when she passed away, it was almost as if, it was kind of rehearsed or predisposed before, where we just kind of got to sit back. Unlike in the past, if we'd used brick and mortar local attorneys, you really got to be involved every step of the way. Make sure that this doesn't go haywire, that doesn't go haywire. Why did we distribute it this way for tax purposes? All kinds of crazy stuff. This was a lot easier. The institutional trustee followed the game plan that we had rehearsed with the client for every year prior to her passing. And yeah, it was kind of it was the easy button. We sat back, assets got distributed. Because of how she set up her trust, we still manage a lot of those assets. And because ePIC did such a good job and that process was so streamlined that those beneficiaries, just like Dad had mentioned, thanked us. They were not clients before, but they go, wow, this is how you guys do business. Can we work with you moving forward? So it's a great thing. Obviously not great when you lose somebody, but as Dad had mentioned, it's a big part of our practice to help clients' assets today and tomorrow on to the next generation. Could not have done that as smoothly if we didn't have that.
Yeah. So Tim, thank you for sharing that story. One last thing, and as I mentioned, this is going to be kind of short. Thank you for the obviously adopting our platform and everything. Can you talk a little bit about what types of conversations or how you typically have the conversation around the jurisdictional shopping that we incorporate, where we're utilizing Nevada, even though most of your clients maybe they're in Michigan, and then how that maybe transition to having conversations with other people that are already that you might be working with when you get introduced to people that might live in other states. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Then I'll take that one. Although Tim has probably helped more people with the ePIC Trust than I have, but I do get that question because many of our folks are mobile. They live in Michigan, but look to move in Florida or Arizona, some places like that. And hey, Dave, will this still carry over? And the beauty of that conversation is that, yes, the documents that you do, it doesn't matter where you're at, that you can adjust and they are valid in all of the states. We've yet to have anybody else pass away in different states and go through this process with them. but I'm confident after seeing how it's gone the first time, we feel really good that this is going to be a better outcome for clients than it would be if we had used local attorneys. I'm very confident of that.
Yeah, and one last final, I guess, as most of the ePIC advisors have been either looking into this or are starting to adopt this, most of the clientele that you work with tend to be 50 plus, we'll say, right? It could be 70, right?
Yep.
And one of the concerns early on was, well, this is technology, right? Well, maybe they're not technologically capable to be able to do this because it is more of a digital, virtual type of a process. Can you talk a little bit about how that's actually benefited your practice and how it makes it easier for the client experience to be able to go through more on a virtual digital platform, and maybe how that's also surprised you?
Sure. Well, Carter, as far as surprised, I think you did a great job telling us about it. So I was not surprised that it worked as great as you told us it would. I guess it's always a nice surprise when that happens. But it is really easy, or I should say it's really nice for us, where we can just kind of pass this off to our clients. You know how we do it, and this is God's honest truth. We send them the link. You know, we obviously talk about it in the meeting. Most of our new subscriptions are clients saying, hey, you know, from years ago, hey, I now had another grandkid. I want to update my trust. And that's really the catalyst for us kind of starting the conversation on it. And we simply say, you know, hey, you have two options, local, here's this, that, and the other thing. And with ePIC, we don't push them one way or the other, but kind of comparing stats, just about everybody that I can think of has said, yeah, ePIC makes way more sense. It's a little bit less expensive, but they do a good, if not better job. And you have a lot more flexibility. I mean, heck, the ability of someone if they're sitting on the tarmac, headed across the world, can update their stuff. That's really valuable versus, I know, at least when we are recording this, it's kind of toward the end of the year. I know a lot of attorneys out there go, hey, I'm booked until the end of the first quarter. This is just, it's super flexible for folks. They can update it whenever they want. And here's kind of another fringe benefit that I've found. The website is super easy, but it at least kind of gets the conversation started with the next generation. Because I've encouraged them to say, hey, you know, if you want to update this, have your kid next to you. And they go, oh, wow, yeah, we can start talking about that conversation. A lot of times we'll get the kids to come into our office to talk about that. So it's really kind of worked out in every possible way so far, which has been great.
Yeah, well, and I've said, and we'll let everybody get going. I've said that, you know, post-COVID especially, people are a lot more willing. It's their willingness to accept doing things more virtually and digitally, right? That has helped to accelerate, I know, our ability to work with, you know, great advisory team like David and Tim Robertson. So I was just thinking to myself, that's, from my perception, that's been one of the added benefits of the ease of working with your clients around the subject matter that's been sort of disconnected for many years and almost 40 years in the business, right, David? It has been a little bit discombobulated versus how the seamless process keeps you as the relationship manager and you always have control of your clients.
Which is a great benefit for us, for ePIC, that we can maintain relationships with people and potentially when their will matures, that hey, we can still help them or help the kids with the next thing. And certainly you guys have done a great job. The institutional trustee, I can't talk enough about them and how comfortable we are. And I think what a great service that is for clients.
Well, I don't know if you want to say anything more than that. I've gotten everything that I needed as far as you know, my agenda here today. This has been great, but I will leave it in both of yours court. Do you want to add anything else? If another advisor might be listening to this right now, what you might want to share with them?
I'm glad we did it. You know, with I feel like with everything with our practice, we don't necessarily love change. This is kind of something that presented itself. But yeah, truly, I'm glad we did it.
So I can throw this in there, Carter. One of the benefits looking back on the ePIC and doing business this way is we like to maintain control. Maybe I like to be in control because I want to see things get done the right way. ePIC and being a part of that whole transition for clients to get money to the next generation gives us great satisfaction knowing that by having control of that we can make sure things get done the right way to the best extent that we can. So for anybody else out there that's looking to maintain, to do things for the next generation, I think that ePIC is a great place to start, and the trust company.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, David and Tim Robertson, again, thank you so much for your time today. And for them, they're in I'm sure that if anybody ever reaches out to them, they're more than happy to have a discussion with you. But for David and Tim Robertson of the Financial Center in Novi, Michigan, I am CEO and founder Carter Wilcoxson of ePIC Services Company. Thank you for your time today. And I hope everybody has a timestamp here. Happy Thanksgiving and an early Merry Christmas to everyone.